the wound behind the want. You didn't fall in love with them. You fell into a pattern that felt like home, not because it was safe, but because it was familiar. They didn't offer you wholeness. They didn't give you warmth. They didn't meet you with presence, but still, you stayed. Still, you wanted. Still, a part of you kept hoping that if you tried hard enough, gave enough, loved enough, they'd finally choose you back. But here's the truth you've always sensed. You weren't chasing them. You were chasing the wound that taught you love was something you had to earn. And that's where this story begins. Love doesn't hurt, but familiarity does. Somewhere in your early story, love became synonymous with reaching, with proving, with waiting. You were taught, whether through neglect, inconsistency, or absence, that love is something you fight for, not something freely given. You may not remember when it started, but you remember how it felt. The parent who was physically present but emotionally absent. The praise that came only when you overachieved. The caregiver who withheld affection to maintain control. The silence that screamed louder than words. So your nervous system began to wire itself to that tension. And now, years later, you find yourself addicted, not to closeness, but to the chase. Because love to you feels like trying harder. The illusion of connection. When you meet someone who gives you breadcrumbs, your mind doesn't see it as a red flag. Your body sees it as home. It lights up in recognition. Ah, this feels like the silence I know. The inconsistency I'm wired for. The neglect I mistake for intimacy. You're not broken for craving them. You're responding to a program, an old blueprint, and that blueprint says, if someone keeps their love just out of reach, it must be because I haven't earned it yet. So you try harder, give more, shrink quieter, perform better, not realizing you've mistaken absence for passion, unavailability for mystery, hot and cold behavior for emotional depth. But love isn't supposed to feel like waiting. Trauma is the architect of attachment. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You didn't choose them. Your wound did. That ache in your chest when they pull away. That isn't love. It's survival. It's your inner child screaming, see me, stay with me, don't disappear again. But that child isn't talking to this person. That child is talking to the one who left first. The one who didn't hold you. The one who made love conditional. The one who made you believe you had to earn your place in someone's heart. So now, you're not loving them. You're trying to repair the original injury. You think if you can just get this person to stay, you'll finally be enough. But you were always enough. You just gave your proof to people who couldn't see it. Their inconsistency isn't depth. Let's get something clear. People who truly love you don't keep you guessing. They don't withdraw just to make you chase. They don't ignore you to see if you'll break. They don't disappear so you'll beg them to return. That's not love. That's emotional manipulation. But when you've been conditioned to believe that love lives on the edge of emotional starvation, any crumb feels like a feast, and so you overvalue their coldness. You romanticize their distance. You mistake their avoidance for strength, and you call your anxiety passion. But deep down, a quiet part of you knows love shouldn't hurt like this. Connection shouldn't feel like longing. Affection shouldn't be earned in pieces. You don't want them. You want relief. The repetition compulsion. This is more than heartbreak. It's repetition. Freud called it the repetition compulsion. The unconscious drive to repeat the trauma in hopes of a different outcome. You go back to the emotionally unavailable person, hoping they'll finally choose you. Because if they choose you, maybe that means you're worthy. But that's the trap, because it's never been about them. It's about healing what they represent, and as long as you chase that redemption through someone incapable of giving it, you stay locked in the loop that says, if I'm exhausted, anxious, and small, I must be doing love right. But love doesn't require suffering. Only your unhealed wounds do. The nervous system confusion. Your brain may know better, but your body still remembers the pattern. This is why it's so hard to walk away, even when you're not happy. Even when they give you nothing, even when you know it's destroying your peace, because your nervous system has confused inconsistency with chemistry, withdrawal with excitement, uncertainty with desire. You don't want the person. You want the feeling you've learned to equate with closeness. It's not love. It's a trauma response. And breaking it isn't about discipline. It's about awareness. Because once you see the loop, you're no longer trapped in it. What you're really craving, let's tell the truth. You're not craving them. You're craving consistency, safety, recognition, emotional presence, the feeling of finally being held not just physically, but emotionally. But you've tried to get all that from someone who doesn't even know how to offer it. So you blame yourself. You think you're too much, too sensitive, too needy, but you're not. You're attuned. You're picking up on what's not there. And your soul is begging you to stop calling it love, because love doesn't leave you empty. Why you keep returning? You keep going back because the wound is unclosed, and the mind always seeks closure. You keep texting them because part of you believes the next reply will fix what's broken. You keep romanticizing the good moments because they're the only pieces your heart can hold onto. You keep making excuses for them. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe they just need space. Maybe I'm overreacting, because the truth that they can't love you the way you need is too painful to hold. But avoiding that truth only prolongs your pain. They're not your soulmate. They're your pattern, and it's time to break it. You don't want them. You want the love you never got, and you're still trying to earn it from people who don't know how to give it. What you're really addicted to, it's not love that keeps you hooked. It's the withdrawal, the gap, the ache, the space between what you give and what never comes back. You call it chemistry, but your nervous system calls it craving. Your soul calls it starvation. You're not addicted to them. You're addicted to the hope they might one day give you what they never could. That's not love. That's trauma repetition. Your brain on uncertainty. When someone loves you inconsistently, when they show up and disappear, when they love bomb and go cold, when they give just enough to keep you confused, your brain goes into overdrive. It floods with dopamine during moments of connection. It panics during withdrawal. It obsesses, scans, analyzes, spirals, all in an attempt to predict when the love will return. But what you're addicted to isn't the person. You're addicted to the pattern of inconsistency, the reward that sometimes comes after the emotional famine, the thrill of being chosen after being ignored. It's intermittent reinforcement, the same method that keeps people addicted to slot machines. Because when the payoff is rare and unpredictable, your brain clings to the memory of reward, even when the cost is your peace. You don't miss them, you miss regulation. Let's tell a deeper truth. When they're gone, what do you really miss? Not the connection, because deep down, there wasn't one. Not the peace, because they never gave you that. What you miss is the temporary numbing from the pain of your own unmet needs. You miss the relief from the constant internal ache. You miss the distraction from your own abandonment wound. You miss the hope that maybe this time will be different. You don't miss them. You miss regulation. And the tragedy is, you believed you could only find that in the arms of the one who destabilized you. The inner child's bargain. Somewhere inside you is a version of yourself, small, wide-eyed, tender, who made a deal with pain. If I accept breadcrumbs, maybe they won't leave. If I'm low maintenance, maybe they'll stay. If I give everything and ask for nothing, maybe I'll be loved. This is the child that learned to not cry too loud, to not need too much, to be good even when unloved, to confuse survival with affection. So now, when you feel unseen, this child thinks, I must be the problem. You don't run from the one who withholds love. You run toward them, because it's the only story your body knows. You love them because they reflect what you're used to. You're not weak. You're familiar. You weren't taught what healthy love looks like. You were shown that love is something distant, erratic, unavailable. So now, when someone treats you with indifference, your mind doesn't scream danger. It whispers home, and that's the wound. It's not about who they are. It's about what they represent, the unavailable parent, the emotionally distant caregiver, the partner who didn't show up when you needed them most. You're not loving them. You're loving the hope that one day, someone like that will finally stay. But that's not love. That's repetition. The addictive loop? Here's the loop most people don't see. 1. You meet someone emotionally unavailable. 2. They give just enough to activate your attachment. 3. You become invested, even though you're anxious and unsettled. 4. They pull away. 5. You panic, blame yourself, and try harder. 6. They return briefly, just enough to soothe the wound. 7. The cycle starts again. This loop isn't romantic. It's a nervous system hijack. It teaches you to see scarcity as value, to mistake emotional chaos for deep love, to crave connection only from those who harm your peace. And every time you return, the bond gets stronger, not because it's love, but because it's survival disguised as loyalty. Why real love feels boring at first. Healthy love doesn't activate your panic. It doesn't keep you guessing. It doesn't trigger your deepest wounds. It calms them. And because of that, at first, it might feel boring. But boredom isn't what you think it is. It's the absence of chaos. It's the unfamiliarity of consistency. The quiet strangeness of being met with peace, not pain. The oddness of being seen without having to perform. That boredom is your nervous system learning how to feel safe again. What you call love may be emotional hunger. Love is neutral. Love is clear. Love is safe. But emotional hunger is obsessive, anxiety-driven, one-sided, confusing, exhausting. When you're emotionally hungry, you'll try to feed on anything that looks like affection, even if it hurts, even if it costs your self-worth, even if it's killing your soul. You're not addicted to love. You're starving for what you never got. And you've mistaken that hunger for passion. But starving is not loving. It's surviving. And you don't have to survive anymore. Your trauma isn't your identity. Here's what's cruel. The longer you stay in trauma-bonded relationships, the more you begin to believe that pain is your personality. You say, I just love too deeply. I'm just attracted to broken people. I'm too sensitive for real relationships. Maybe I'm just not meant to be loved. But that's not truth. That's trauma talking. You weren't born to beg. You weren't designed to prove your worth to people who don't see it. You weren't built to carry the silence of others and call it love. That pain, it's not who you are. It's where you are. Seeing the pattern is the first step to freedom. This is how you break it. 1. See it. Acknowledge that what you're experiencing isn't love. It's a trauma pattern. 2. Name it. Call it what it is. Emotional starvation, attachment wounding, unmet needs. 3. Reclaim it. Begin offering yourself the safety you've been begging others to give you. 4. Repattern it. Choose connections that feel peaceful, not panicked. Choose people who meet your love with presence, not disappearance. 5. Breathe it. Let yourself mourn what they never were, what you hoped they'd become, what you lost by staying. Because healing doesn't always feel like rising. Sometimes it feels like letting go. You are not hard to love. You were just taught to love people who couldn't love you back. But that doesn't make you unlovable. It makes you brave. It makes you loyal. It makes you someone who can love through pain. But now, it's time to love yourself through healing. Because the moment you stop chasing what breaks you, you create space for what builds you. You don't need to convince someone to stay. You need to convince yourself you're worth walking away. And you are. You always were. You're not broken. You're unlearning what never should have felt like love in the first place. Love, longing, and the lie of familiarity. There's a dangerous myth we carry, that the one who makes us feel the most anxious is the one we must be meant for, because the intensity feels real. The emotional highs and lows mimic depth. The longing feels like love, but that's not love. That's emotional confusion. That's psychological residue. That's the lie of familiarity. Longing is not the same as loving. What if the person you miss was never who you thought they were? What if the connection you felt was just your nervous system clinging to a familiar wound? What if your heart isn't broken? It's just detoxing from someone who activated your pain. You confuse longing for love because your earliest experiences taught you that love was something far away, unpredictable, and earned through effort. But longing isn't loving. It's the ache for what wasn't given. It's the phantom of a need unmet. Why the pain feels familiar and safe. When your childhood trained you to live in emotional uncertainty, your body began to believe that love equals confusion, that closeness equals anxiety, that distance equals desire. So now, as an adult, you mistake those same signals as chemistry. You feel drawn to people who keep you guessing, pull away at random, withhold affection, offer inconsistency, and then disappear. And when someone stable shows up, someone who's clear, present, and emotionally available, you recoil. You call it boring, but it's not boring. It's foreign, because your body never learned what peace feels like, so it rejects it. You mistake activation for connection. Here's what trauma does. It teaches your nervous system to confuse being activated with being alive. So, when someone triggers your wounds, you feel more engaged, more invested, more intoxicated. You think, this must be love. Why else would I feel this much? But what you're feeling is the reactivation of an old injury. You're not in love. You're in reenactment. And every time you return to that kind of pain, you're trying to fix what happened to you through someone who resembles the one who caused it. That's not connection. It's repetition. Why you chase people who withhold? Because it gives you a role to play. If they're distant, you get to be the fixer. If they're avoidant, you get to be the pursuer. If they're inconsistent, you get to stay busy trying to decode them. And if you're busy chasing them, you never have to sit with the deeper pain that you were never taught how to be loved without chasing. So, you fill your life with the noise of their absence. You make meaning out of the silence. You cling to moments that weren't real, because the alternative is facing a deeper wound you never asked for. The original template. Love didn't start with romance. It started with the first people who held you, or didn't, who mirrored your feelings, or ignored them, who responded to your cries, or left you alone with them. That template became your definition of connection, and unless you bring it into awareness, you'll keep repeating it, even when it hurts, even when it costs you your self-worth, even when the voice inside is begging you to stop. Because the soul doesn't just seek love, it seeks what it knows, even if what it knows is pain, the false high of being chosen temporarily. Here's the trick of emotional starvation. When they finally give you affection, it feels like winning oxygen. You tell yourself, this means I'm worthy, this means they care, but that feeling isn't proof of love, it's proof of deprivation. You feel high because you were so low. You feel close because the distance was unbearable. But a love that needs to disappear just to feel powerful when it returns isn't love, it's a loop, and the loop doesn't heal you, it empties you. Familiar does not equal fulfilling. Just because it feels familiar doesn't mean it's right. Just because it reminds you of your past doesn't mean it belongs in your future. Familiarity is not safety. Comfort is not health. Desire is not destiny. You may feel drawn to their silence, their emotional withholding, their hot and cold pattern, but that pull is not proof of love. It's proof of the story you're trying to rewrite. And some stories are meant to end. The brain's craving for closure. One reason you stay stuck is because you haven't gotten closure. You're still waiting for the conversation where they admit they were wrong, where they finally say, I see you, I'm sorry, you didn't deserve this. But here's the painful truth. The person who hurt you isn't capable of giving you that closure. If they were, you wouldn't need it. And so your brain keeps circling, trying to complete the story. But you don't need closure from them. You need closure from the version of yourself that kept believing their love would heal you. That version deserves a goodbye. Stop mistaking effort for value. You've tried so hard. You've bent, softened, explained, waited, hoped, shrunk, sacrificed, and still, it wasn't enough for them. But maybe the problem was never you. Maybe they weren't supposed to understand your heart. Maybe their silence was your answer. Maybe their inconsistency wasn't a challenge to overcome, but a sign to let go. Stop trying to get water from a stone. Stop trying to win someone who's not playing. Stop trying to prove your worth to someone who was never equipped to recognize it. The first step is naming it. Call it what it is. Not love, but a trauma bond. Not desire, but emotional addiction. Not passion, but nervous system dysregulation. Not chemistry, but unresolved grief. Because the moment you name it, you interrupt it. You break the spell. You see the cycle. And from that awareness comes choice. The choice to stop calling heartbreak a soulmate. The choice to walk away from the chase. The choice to rewrite the story. This time, with you at the center. You don't want their love. You want peace. You want safety. You want yourself back. And that begins when you stop chasing what never loved you and start reclaiming what always did. How to rewire your worth and walk away. You've made it this far, not because you're weak, but because something inside you always knew. This wasn't what love was supposed to feel like. And now, you're done surviving it. Now, you're ready to reclaim your story. Healing starts where chasing stops. The first revolution. You stop chasing, not because they stopped mattering, but because you started mattering more. You begin to ask, why am I running towards someone who keeps backing away? Why am I offering my soul to someone who only meets me halfway? Why do I need their validation more than I need my peace? And slowly, something shifts. You stop texting first. You stop explaining yourself to silence. You stop asking the same question with your absence. Am I not enough? You no longer need their reply, because the real answer was always yours to give. Rewiring the internal narrative. Let's name the deeper wound. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that being chosen was the measure of your worth, that love was something earned, that affection was transactional, that you had to become smaller to be held. But here's what healing asks: that you grieve what you didn't get, that you stop blaming yourself for how they responded, that you stop asking, "What did I do wrong?" and start asking, "What made me believe I deserved less?" Because your worth was never determined by someone's inability to love. It was simply hidden beneath years of proving, pleasing, and performing. But now it's returning. The sacred power of no more. Healing doesn't always look like soft light and daily affirmations. Sometimes it looks like a quiet rage inside you that says, "No more, no more," begging for clarity from someone who thrives in confusion, twisting yourself into something acceptable, calling emotional starvation connection, waiting for someone who always leaves, believing your value depends on someone else's attention. No more is a boundary. It's a sacred rebellion. It's the first sentence in a brand new story, one where you no longer chase, but choose. From codependency to self-reverence, you may have thought you were being loyal, that staying was a sign of depth, that loving someone who gave you nothing made you strong. But that wasn't loyalty. That was codependency. And it doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Humans who've been neglected often believe love must be earned through sacrifice, silence, and self-erasure. But you're learning now. Real love does not require you to disappear. It meets you in your fullness. It honors your boundaries. It speaks your language. And it doesn't arrive only when you're falling apart. The repatterning begins with you. Let's repattern. When someone pulls away, you don't chase. When someone disrespects your boundaries, you enforce them. When someone is inconsistent, you don't explain it away. You name it and walk. And when love finally arrives, as it should, calm, consistent kind, you let yourself receive it without the old ache that says, "This is too good to be true," because it's not. You were just taught to expect the storm. But now you've built shelter inside yourself, becoming the safe place you sought in others. You've searched for safety in the arms of the unavailable, the chaotic, the withholding. Now it's time to give that safety to yourself. That means sitting with your emotions instead of outsourcing them, speaking your truth even if your voice shakes, loving your aloneness not as a punishment, but as a portal, holding your inner child with the tenderness no one ever offered you. You stop seeking saviors. You become the one you've waited for. You don't just heal, you transform. Healing isn't a return. It's a transformation. You won't be who you were before the heartbreak. You'll be stronger, wiser, clearer, softer in the places you once hardened, and firmer in the places you once bent too far. You'll look back not with resentment, but with reverence, for the you who survived it, for the you who woke up in the middle of the pain and said, "This ends with me." Your wholeness was never gone, just hidden. This isn't a journey toward becoming someone else. This is a journey back to yourself. You are not healing to attract them back. You are healing so that next time someone walks away, you don't crumble. You rise. You are healing not to become more lovable, but to remember that you always were. You are healing not to prove your worth, but to protect it. Your wholeness was never lost. It was just buried beneath all the ways you tried to be loved by people who didn't know how. The final truth: you were never addicted to them. You were addicted to a story, one where you finally became enough in the eyes of someone who never saw you. But now, you're not interested in being seen by someone who only looks when they feel like it. You're not begging for love from those who treat it like a currency. You're not offering your soul to those who can't even hold space for their own. You're not addicted anymore. You're awake, and freedom, not fantasy, is your new home. Let this be the last time you chase what hurts. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to want more. You're allowed to heal, grow, and outgrow. And you're allowed to say, "I deserve love that doesn't make me bleed." This is not where your story ends. It's where your soul rewrites it. You are not broken. You are becoming. And one day, you will thank yourself for the moment you finally said, "Enough, I choose me." You are not here to chase. You are here to choose. And this time, you choose your own peace.